grace of God in the hands of the Lord?
Mm-hmm. I sure did. A lot of us did. We talked about it.
Streetlamp glare dances across the wrought-iron gates of a forgotten southern graveyard, a ribbon of light that sputters like an old marquee refusing to admit the show is finally over. The air hangs thick with magnolia bloom, damp grass, yesterday's gunpowder, and secrets nobody dared confess while the jukebox still spun its last call anthems. Night insects saw away at the hush, and somewhere beyond the moss-draped cedars, a whip-poor-will stutters, as if rehearsing backup vocals for the legends buried here. We pry those legends open today, digging through red clay and rumor to uncover burial wishes so peculiar they feel like encore numbers performed 6 feet under. Some stars insisted on guitars tucked tight against their ribs, others pre-planned full concerts to rattle their tombstones, and at least one outlaw ordered Rhinestones so bright they could blind the moon itself. Keep your flashlight steady. What you're about to hear will make every love song sound like a warning label because heading downhill into eternity never stopped these rebels from writing a final verse. Ticket stubs litter the gravel path like confetti from gigs long ended, and every headstone doubles as a backstage pass to folklore that never made the liner notes. Lean closer. Static from an ancient AM station still spins their hit somewhere in the branches, reminding us that vinyl can warp, but rebellion refuses. Grab a spare battery before we step farther in. Legends hate power outages even more than critics. Hank Williams Sr. refused to let highway lullabies die with him. According to close friends, the honky-tonk poet demanded a Gibson guitar laid across his chest and a pint of Tennessee whiskey wedged into the curve of his arm so he could keep picking and sipping in whatever barroom eternity awaited. Mourners swore the white roses around his coffin smelled stronger after midnight, as if the bottle's seal had cracked and Hank was raising a clandestine toast. His mother said the fiddle by his boots reminded him of home. Skeptics muttered that it forced the Devil's Band to pay royalties. Either way, the crowd left humming, half convinced those guitar strings would quiver once the dirt settled. They sealed the lid just before dawn. Yet old drummers in the back heard finger-picking threaded through the eulogies, a ghost track only diehards could catch. Afterward, the tour bus idled like a loyal hound while roadies loaded nothing but bouquets. Decades later, historians discovered his final set list tucked in the case. Every title spelled out a secret acrostic. I'm not done yet. Maybe he isn't. Johnny Cash, the man in black, didn't merely wear the uniform. He ordered it for eternity. Every layer was midnight dark. Suit, boots, even the silk lining, because, as he told June, light belongs on stage, shadows belong to me. June Carter Cash matched him shade for shade when she joined him, turning their plot into the darkest duet a cemetery ever hosted. Undertakers recalled that sunrise on the polished wood looked like a grand piano waiting for chord 1. Visitors claim the temperature still drops a notch beside their marker as though darkness isn't a pigment, but a covenant. Fluorescents were killed. A single spotlight glowed so the ebony fabric shone like fresh asphalt after rain. A hush fell, broken only when a child whispered, "Mama, that's the real Batman." Months later, when June arrived, forecasts said clear skies, yet clouds gathered anyway, as if heaven needed matching attire. Locals now track black butterflies fluttering near the stone, calling them the true Carter Cash reunion tour. Patsy Cline believed one red rose could outsing any obituary. Her will begged fans to bring nothing else, no wreaths, no plastic, just a sea of scarlet gratitude. On burial day, thousands complied, and by sunset the cemetery resembled a crimson field, petals lifting on wind like love notes. Gravediggers smelled roses underground for weeks, perfume thick enough to drown grief. Some swear Patsy's voice rides the night air on anniversaries, carried by those petals as they wither into soil. Florists reported a nationwide shortage of long-stem reds. Iron levels in the earth spiked, greening the grass like fresh chart ink. On moonlit nights, the breeze seems to harmonize, carrying her high notes on invisible wings. George Jones distrusted silence. so he programmed a farewell concert at graveside. Before the possum punched out, he recorded jokes for the crowd and asked friends like Alan Jackson to belt hits between tears. Loudspeakers rattled oak branches, scaring off every bird for miles. When the last chord faded, George's pre-recorded chuckle, "Y'all be good now," cut the power, an encore no one could top. Neighbors complained for years about late-night echoes of "He stopped loving her today." Old friends swear George printed the programs himself, roasting each pallbearer in the margins. Amps crackled on plywood planks over fresh dirt because someone skipped a surge protector. Chaos he'd adore. When the tape clicked off, car alarms in the lot blared synchronously. Accidental curtain call. Faulty wiring? Maybe. Or maybe the possum just hates dead air. Tammy Wynette demanded coral lipstick and a gold-plated mic, the same combo that spun Heartache into Billboard gold. Makeup artists retouched her one last time until the First Lady looked stage-ready. The mic rested like a promise. She'd belt "Stand by your man" if heaven required ID. Tourists press ears to marble, hoping for rehearsal hums. Beauty editors argued weeks over her perfect coral. Her daughter settled it. Mama never hit a stage without that shade. Undertakers added extra lights. The coffin shone like its own spotlight. Fans kissed the glass, leaving lip prints like soft autographs. By dawn, the lid looked like a glitter scrapbook of gratitude. Merle Haggard chose to face the railroad slicing through his land because that whistle was his first instrument. On funeral morning, a freight roared past, horn blasting an unscripted salute. Folks insist his headstone vibrates whenever steel wheels grind by, a metronome set to boxcar tempo. He timed burial for the daily 10:17 so the final prayer drowned beneath that howl. Conductors now blow twice passing his property, a secret salute. Visitors leave harmonicas on the stone. Reeds sometimes buzz without wind, turning the site into lo-fi symphony. Porter Wagoner never met a rhinestone he didn't love, so he ordered one last nudie suit, blood-red fabric, silver boots, jewels stitched like ascending scales. Funeral staff needed sunglasses to close the lid. Legend claims moonlight ricochets off the coffin, turning the plot into a silent disco ball. Porter mapped constellations with those gems so future stargazers could chart by his torso. Photographers joked flashes bounced back hard enough to ignite dry grass. When skeptics asked why excess, Porter answered in a dream, "Heaven might be bright, but it ain't sparkly." Motorists swear red glints from the highway at night aren't taillights, they're Porter still shining. Loretta Lynn pre-selected a hillside beside Dew, marking it years earlier with a mason jar of Kentucky dirt, her final front porch. Lowered under a cedar they planted, family guitars leaned like rocking chairs. Locals claimed the jar cracked, releasing coal country scent strong enough to guide her home. Wildflowers she planted bloom every October, matching her Opry anniversary. Grandkids picnic there annually, passing Dew's jar now filled with creek water toasting stubborn love. One summer, lightning scorched the cedar, burning a perfect heart into the bark. Nobody touched the scar. They call it Loretta's autograph. Waylon Jennings treated cremation like another long haul, scattering part of his ashes in Arizona and burying the rest with his battered Telecaster. Friends split guitar picks as keepsakes. Some say Waylon's living room amp crackles alive at night, chasing chords no human strikes. A tiny vial of desert sand rests inside the urn. Wherever it travels, Arizona rides shotgun. Producers splice his raw riffs into modern tracks, claiming the tone feels warmer, like the wood still remembers bar smoke. Pilgrims build campfires nearby. If wind cuts right, they hear telelicks hidden inside flames. Dottie West wrote melodies on napkins, so she asked those fragile pages folded over her heart. Ink bled into satin while mourners hummed Country Sunshine. A musicologist swears exhumation would show notes etched into bone, a literal soundtrack. Coffee stains from 3 a.m. bus rides mar the staves. Scholars photographing fold lines notice they mimic a treble clef, turning Dottie into one last piece of sheet music. During heavy rain, the grave smells of paper pulp and perfume as if her notebook's still dry somewhere below. Lefty Frizzell wanted battery radios playing his catalog. Caretakers collected them nightly, then surrendered. Even on dead batteries, static kept vigil, eerily like applause. During one storm, lightning fried half the units, yet one kept crooning Long Black Veil till dawn. Batteries declared dead. Engineers found no cause. Pilgrims now leave playlists on waterproof drives, hoping Lefty upgrades to digital. The hiss persists. It's him clearing his throat. Roy Acuff adored the riverbank more than any spotlight, so he tucked his favorite rod beside him alongside a snapshot of the secret bend where catfish outsmart critics. Anglers still leave fresh lures. Some disappear overnight. Heavenly trout, an old buddy jokes. Dew on foggy mornings glints like scales across the marker, turning stone into shimmering water. Conway Twitty wrote his own rhymed eulogy, read by his son like a top 10 single. Listeners laughed through tears. He'd scored one last hit without exiting the cemetery. A limited press vinyl of the poem lies groove down over his heart. 30 seconds of studio banter hide on the B-side. Conway laughing at an off-mic joke before counting off, revealing the man, not the myth. Labels beg to reissue. Contracts say all masters stay 6 feet under. Midnight bootleg mics capture only wind. And sometimes a baritone hum skeptics won't explain. Jeannie C. Riley banned country at her service, ordering pure Southern gospel so angels would recognize her quicker. The hymn book left open to page 333. I'll fly away. Flutters though the windows stay shut. Local bird flocks swell on mornings there, turning dawn into feathered revival. Chapel rafters shook so hard the sound guy swore hidden amps were plugged in. Charlie Rich wanted hush, arranging a candlelit vigil. No speeches, no songs, except piano lines he secretly recorded. Sound engineers later isolated faint heartbeat rhythms behind the chords, either a metronome or proof he mixed mortality straight into the track. Beeswax candles are swapped yearly. Wax drips form identical eighth-note patterns down the marble. No one scrapes them. Erasing them feels like censoring measures of a score. Farron Young threw a graveyard bash, stocking an ice chest with beer and inviting pals to pitch empties into the hole. Aluminum clanged like cymbals. Cemetery managers fumed. Farron would have howled. Bottle caps still surface after storms, bright as confetti. He'd specified brand and frost level. Beer had to sweat. Some mourners slipped on wet grass, turning the goodbye into slapstick he'd love. Archaeologists cataloged the crushed can layer a decade later, dubbing it a celebratory midden, a tiny monument to rowdy remembrance. Buck Owens picked a Bakersfield tree he'd planted himself, believing California sun through those branches would let fans feel the warmth in Act Naturally. The tree keeps climbing, roots tangled in his boots, branches strumming wind like Telecaster twang. Groundskeepers track growth rings. They say the spacing echoes the tempo of Tiger by the Tail. When drought strafed the county, locals hauled buckets to water the roots, claiming Bakersfield's sound itself depended on that shade. Migrant workers camping nearby report midnight leaves shimmering with faint steel guitar slides. No tour of this midnight archive is complete without checking the weather-beaten bulletin board nailed to an oak near the main path. Warped by humidity and riddled with tack holes, it once held lost pics, prayer cards, and ticket stubs. Luther, the groundskeeper since the Carter administration, saves every relic he pries loose. He swears new notes appear after storms, names he's never heard, scrawled in marker, begging forgotten idols to spin one last chorus. A folklore professor wants to carbon date the paper. Luther just tapes the pleas into a scrapbook and lets the mystery play on. Between Johnny's shadow-cool marker and Patsy's rose-red lawn lies a narrow dirt lane locals call Melody Alley. The space barely fits 2 mourners, yet every dusk the air swells as if invisible bleachers rise to seat a phantom audience. Visitors report hints of polecat musk, bourbon breath, and honeysuckle. 3 cents old producers claimed guaranteed a hit when mixed just right. Phones left recording their jump from silent mode to full volume without warning, capturing nothing but that stubborn hiss that makes believers out of skeptics. A mile past the gate, the county fairground hosts an annual flashlight jamboree. Pickups park in a circle, tailgates down, radios tuned to that stubborn AM station leaking static and twang. The tradition began as a rain delay tailgate, but morphed into a vigil where families share rumors and vote which ghost would headline an all-star bill beyond the pearly gates. Last summer, a high schooler projected scratchy footage of Hank onto a sheet, and the crowd hollered like he'd stepped out for an encore. When the battery died, every radio briefly hissed the same minor chord, convincing half the attendees the legend had signed off in real time. Not every sign here is mournful. Beneath the cedar that shades Loretta's hillside, bluegrass crickets form what scientists call a stridulation chorus. Play them an old Opry recording in G and they chirp faster as if applauding. When the cedar's lightning-branded heart glows under certain angles, even lab coat skeptics concede some rhythms prefer mystery over data. Halfway up the ridge between Porter's glitter coffin and Whalen's humming amp, stands a rust-flecked water spigot nobody remembers installing. Twist the handle and ice-cold water gushes year-round, tasting faintly of iron and limestone. Fans swear one sip wipes road fatigue faster than truck-stop coffee. Local rumor claims the pipe taps an aquifer fed by tears shed backstage at the Ryman. Pragmatists guess an old farm well. Either way, Luther fills a mason jar each dawn and pours it over Hank's roses, convinced the mineral mix keeps their perfume strong. At the stroke of midnight, just as Farron's caps quit clinking and Buck's tree hushes its wind-twang lullaby, the cemetery stages its most secret ritual, the lantern processional. 7 devotees, never 6, never 8, arrive with kerosene lamps hand-painted in album art. They walk the loop counterclockwise, stopping at each stone to murmur deep-cut lyrics that never reached radio but saved somebody's faith. The procession ends at Luther's bulletin board, where they hook a tiny brass key beneath the wood. By sunrise, the keys vanish. Luther won't admit where they go, only that losing track of them guarantees a week of feedback squeal on the AM dial. You might wonder why any of this matters in a world ruled by autoplay playlists and algorithmic whispers. Simple. Stories travel farther than signals. Vinyl will scratch, cassettes warp, hard drives crash, but a good yarn glides through time the way steel strings glide under calloused fingers, bending, shimmering, refusing to shut up. Share one of these moonlit tales with the friend riding shotgun tomorrow. Watch their grip on the wheel tighten when the punchline lands and some old chorus suddenly feels brand new. If you've stayed with me this long, you're already an honorary lantern bearer. Tell me below which legend shocked you, or reveal your own outrageous encore request. Tap like the way Porter tapped jewels into red cloth and subscribe so you don't miss our next moonlit trek through hush and harmony. Hit that bell. Algorithms nap, but memories deserve front row alerts. Until then, keep the dial set to static and wonder whose ghost might be warming up during the silence between songs. Before we lock the gate behind us, Luther's notebook deserves a mention. He keeps it in his shirt pocket, a spiral pad yellowed by sweat and sawdust. Each page records oddities, candle wax appearing where no vigil was scheduled, a single A string stretched across Gus Hardin's unmarked bench, boot prints circling Tammy's plot that vanish at the fence. The final line on the most recent page reads, November 4th, heard laughter under George's oak, smelled fresh whiskey, no wind tonight. He underlined it twice, just in case future skeptics need coordinates. 17 graves, 17 encores, proof country music never clocks out. It just changes venues. These burial wishes aren't morbid stunts, their last verses and ballads still charting somewhere beyond static. Next time a country classic crackles through your speakers, picture guitars, roses, rhinestones, and whistles collaborating underground on a secret jam. Remember, that tune might be broadcasting from 6 feet under, powered by candle wax, freight horns, or the hiss of a transistor left looping. Legends aren't ghosts. They're late-night DJs spinning memories until daylight lifts the needle. When silence finally falls, tip your hat, refill the ice chest, cue the next record. Somebody, somewhere is always listening.